this is a project that's essentially a conversation. Um, what brought you to that sort of a project? What drew you to those characters?
Um, I guess I just wanted to really explore the juxtaposition of these two characters who kind of seemingly are in very different times or
Hmm.
spaces in their lives, and kind of explore how they might be maybe more similar than dissimilar. And
Yeah.
like in my head, I always kind of seen them as being two sides of the same coin. So yeah, just really wanting to dig into that. And the conversation kind of seemed like the best way to do that. I feel like, the best way to get to know someone is to talk to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Although that really puts a lot on the chemistry of your two actors, right? That they they have to be able to be convincing in that, and I thought they were. But how was it working with them?
Oh man, it was such a great experience. We did a lot of, like as you said, because it relies so much on the actors, their chemistry, their performance to really carry the film and keep people invested and not be, not have their minds wander. We did a lot of rehearsal before we shot, just to really get into like who are these characters, what is this relationship between the two of them. Um, yeah, and we didn't really want that first day of filming for it to be like, oh, this is their first time ever meeting or like being in the same room together and interacting. So um, yeah.
Well, it gives that feeling, especially at the beginning. We, the viewers, are really put in the middle of something that has been ongoing, and we have to sort of get caught up with them. Let me ask you, the film is kind of bookended, not kind of, it is bookended by human touch. It
Mm.
kind of starts with that moment of the massage, and then it ends with a more nuanced, a more romantic sort of touch. What does human touch mean in this context to this story?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, I guess again, it's just about that exchange of energy and the exchange of, I don't know, like, I guess being able to break like a touch barrier with someone requires like a level of intimacy, I guess, intimacy, comfort with them. And I mean, as you said in the book ending of it all, I think that you can sort of see how the type of energy that is exchanged in those two touches is very different and kind of progresses their journey together. And how there's a lot more, uh, yeah, comfort, I guess, and vulnerability by the end. Um, yeah, yeah.
Well, the in the massage scene, there's it's very clear that our one character, and you're gonna have, I'm sorry, I know we just asked this, but you're gonna have to remind me again of the name.
Annabelle.
Annabelle is really taken aback by that touch, and is maybe not quite ready to be vulnerable in that moment, even though she clearly needs it. You know, you have a line in the script that every touch must be electric. And I
Mm.
love that line. Tell me a little bit about that and where it comes in the film.
Uh, for people who don't necessarily get a lot of human touch or a lot of connection, I think every time you get that, it feels like, I don't know, new, fresh, exciting. Both maybe positively and negatively, I guess. It's just it's an unexpected kind of thing, I guess. Yeah, and I guess it's maybe that trope of like the first time of anything is always the most kind of exciting.
Yeah,
And maybe the more you do it, the more you get it, or whatever it is, the more maybe it loses its novelty or excitement.
yeah,
Um, yeah, and so in that, I really wanted for Tessie to kind of express the. I don't really want to. I don't necessarily know if longing is the right word or like. Yeah, but I guess it's her perception of maybe how things are for Annabelle,
mhm,
and maybe her desire to recapture some of that for herself.
yeah, yeah. Well, the two characters' professions, if you will, one relies, is human touch is part of that. And then bookkeeping is kind of the opposite. There is no required human to human contact. It's numbers, it's impersonal, and so
Mhm.
there's a lot of defense system that has to be broken through there.
Yeah, but at the same time, again, I think both jobs are maybe more similar than dissimilar in some ways because I guess the sex work can also be very clinical and very kind of hands off and like you're just kind of
Mhm.
going through the motions of it. Um, Whereas I also think that bookkeeping can be very intimate because you're getting to know like where somebody's spending all of their money, what they're doing with it, how they're living their lives, and you know.
Wow. Oh, that's so great. I wouldn't have thought of that. Yeah. Um, there's another line that Tessie gives that hey, life is transactional. Um, and I have thought that at times. I mean, I think that's a really harsh interpretation of what life is, but I don't think it's wrong.
Mm,
I think given that she's a sex worker, there's a context that you immediately think of for that. But I think very often that's the way life is, and it kind of struck me because it's not an easy thing to hear. You want to believe that life is about warmth and love and connection, but most of the time it's not.
yeah, absolutely. It's definitely something that I think about all the time. When is the last time that you really did something for someone that was really just for them and there was no kind of selfish anything behind it? And even in the most kind of unselfish of acts, I think there is still like that. Like there is still a level of like selfishness behind it of like, it makes you feel good to do something nice for somebody or like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Or and some certain things where you're like, no, 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 I really just did it for them. It's kind of like, okay, but then say, I don't know, a month or a couple months down the line, they're kind of in a position to help you in maybe a similar way and they choose not to. You're probably going to feel a little bit angry because you're like, yeah, but I did that thing for you X months ago. How come you're not, you know what I mean? So it's like
Right.
everything on some level has some kind of expectation maybe of reciprocity.
Yeah. And even, I mean, I hope that at the end of this film, I hope that she opens herself up to the possibility of dating, or of
Mm,
seeing someone, of letting that light into her life. But that process is transactional, particularly in our day and age of internet dating, where you kind of have to sell yourself and be on the market. I mean, that's the euphemism, right? I'm on the market, and it's hard not to approach this quest for love as a transaction. Here are the things I have going for me. Here are the boxes that you tick off on what I want, and it, yeah, it
yeah, absolutely.
a negotiation, and that's not romantic.
Totally. Totally. And I think that for somebody who maybe has never kind of had that type of love connection, whatever, in their lives, it can be especially challenging. And especially like, and if you're also battling with some degree of like low self esteem, I think it's even harder to kind of put yourself in a position to be like, well, this is what's so great about me and why you should get to know me and like whatever.
Absolutely. So how did this project start? Where did you're both the writer and the director. So where did the idea come from? How long have you been working on this?
I guess I've been working on it for several years now in many kind of different iterations, and still kind of continue to play with the overall form and these two characters. Uh, but yeah, for me, it really just started with those two characters first, and then kind of figuring out what might be sort of an interesting journey for the two of them to go on. Um, yeah, and then the short film we started shooting in, oh gosh, time feels like such a blur now, but I think it was the winter of 2021.
Oh my
Uh,
goodness.
yeah,
COVID-orama. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And then because of COVID, we'd originally planned it to just be like a one weekend shoot. So then after our first day, we had to shut down 'cause somebody had gotten sick on the production. Uh, and Anuka who plays Annabelle, she lives in LA, and so she was going back home, and there was just a bunch of like logistical stuff that was sort of working against us. So then we weren't able to get our second day of shooting until pretty much a year to the day later.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That doesn't that doesn't show in the film at all. It's seamless.
Yeah.
So well
Good.
done.
I'm glad
Yeah,
because
I
that
mean,
was definitely a gamble.
yeah, well, and I know you're not alone there, right? There were all sorts of productions that got shut down altogether, or that had that leap of time.
Yeah.
Darn you,
Yeah.
COVID.
Totally. But I think what makes it especially challenging in this particular instance is because the film is essentially kind of like a real-time conversation, all taking place in one kind of space. You don't really have the cutaway of like, oh, well, they went to the mall or whatever. And so I
Right.
guess things could be a little bit different or whatever.
Let me just one last question. I You end the film on this just wonderful shot of a I'm going to say easily a dozen different expressions, a dozen different emotions that come across that face, and it is wonderful to watch because there's everything in that look. There's the fear, there's the awakening joy, there's sort of a the hell just happened look, and you got everything in that expression. How what did you do to prep her for that? Or did you just kind of let it happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is because again, we did so much rehearsal beforehand. Um, and then of course Anuka is just such a wonderful actor. Yeah, so it was really just kind of like, all right, let's just let the moment play and let me kind of see how long I can roll the camera on this and see what happens.
Yeah. Well, it pays off because, and this takes me back to one of the earlier questions, you honestly, as the viewer, have no idea what might happen next because everything happened in that beautiful face in the
Mhm.
span of however long that shot goes. Every single possible outcome goes through her mind.
Mhm.
Uh, and I loved that.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too.
Well, thank you. Tell folks if you have an idea where they might be able to access this film from here. At this point, the audience has already seen your film, and but in terms of streaming it or recommending it to friends afterwards, is there a place where it might find a home?
Yeah, so we're still kind of finishing up our festival run. But then after that, we'll probably find some kind of platform online or wherever where people can watch it. But if you want to kind of stay apprised and stay on top of the journey, you can check us out on Instagram at WMG Film. And yeah, we'll keep everybody updated there.
Murray, thank you so much for talking to us. This has been a joy.
No problem. My pleasure.